Yo, what up? It's Adam Hamer. This is part 11 of my testimony, and for this one, it's going to be a shorter one. I'm going to pivot off from the more serious discussions that I've just been sharing about my life and experiences. I'm going to talk about Kanye West and my persons and the time that I worked with him. Alright, well, I, as you find yourself on this page, am a filmmaker. And if you look at my playlist, you can see stuff that I worked on. It's not all the stuff, it's some of the stuff. I worked on some dumb stuff, some stuff. Anyways, I was the lead editor on the Hype Williams Kanye West music video, Marvin and Chardonnay. It's a Big Sean and Kanye video. I also was the camera operator on a Puma commercial with Big Sean, who is really cool and a nice person. I met him on that shoot. Anyways, I was really young. I just graduated USC Film School when I got this job to edit this video. I got this job through a friend of mine from college, and he was dating a woman named Kesh, who went on to become a well-known designer and painter, and she was a Kanye stylist at the time. Anyways, she hired me to edit that video. The cut that came out, I edited myself from, it was pretty funny because Hype Williams didn't want it recut, and for years, no one even believed me that I actually edited it. And why it's part of the testimony is because, well, as I have personal knowledge of the matter, and a lot of people in the public claim that Mr. West is a monarch. I'm gonna share some stuff I know. Well, I have no knowledge of his involvement in Monarch. What I do have is knowledge of my own non-consensual involvement in Monarch, and thus my relation to Kanye West in the Monarch program via the video that we collaborated on that features quite a lot of hypnotic and subliminal imagery that is characteristic of Monarch programming. So the video is called Marvin and Chardonnay. As I stated before, I was the lead editor on that video. And just to go back to how it was made. So when I first got the gig, I was hired to cut this video. Like I was saying, Hype Williams did not want anyone else to re-edit it. There was this early cut on the Def Jam server that was, it was really low quality. Kanye was, you could see him stepping on the set, and you could literally see the fabric crinkling behind him, and that's what they had in the cut. But meanwhile, Hype Williams did not want anyone to re-edit it. Like I said, he certainly didn't want me to do it. I think I just graduated college. I was like a kid. It was in maybe 2010 or 2011. I think it was 2010. I don't even know if I'd graduated college at that point. I might have still been like the final year. I graduated in 2011 from USC Film School on scholarship, academic scholarship. And also, so Hype Williams didn't want me to edit this, but the only option I had was to download a file of the video, an early copy that I think I still have. That was really crappy. That was on the Def Jam server that, like I said, you could see Kanye stepping on the fabric, and it was really bad. And because he didn't want anyone to edit it, Hype he refused to release the drive. And Kanye was telling me through Kesh, who'd only talk to me through email, that the video had to be done like ASAP, and he was basically like wanted it immediately. So we stayed up in shifts where I would work these long periods, and then Kesh and her boyfriend, who was my friend, they would assist and edit and produce and prep footage, and also one of them color graded the video. And we did that from this really low res cut from the Def Jam server. So I took that really crappy cut and I cut that little tiny cut apart and then remade the video that exists. And I did all the effects. I did the text in the beginning. I did the strobing. I did the robotic effect. I did the mats on the screen you see throughout the video that are like different shapes, and the cuts that use the mats that use like shapes like this. I did all that effects work myself manually. I cut that video myself, and I was paid for that job. And the thing is, okay, so let's talk about Monarch programming for a second. I was absolutely subjected to Monarch programming in the 1990s via the GATE program, and it's a lifelong thing. It's a self-perpetuating, self-sustaining machine. So one of the aspects of the type of programming that I was forced upon, or that was forced upon me, involves the unconscious reproduction of programming type materials, like aka knowing how to program someone else via having the experience of having it done, and also through symbolic manipulation and the sort. So let me just give you an example of how symbols are used. People ask oftentimes, especially online, they say, oh, what is the meaning of this? Or what is the meaning of this? Left brain, right brain. Look up what each specialize in. Look up, the evolution of bicameralism and split brain research and how that relates to traumatic mind control. Okay? Now, we're going to go back to the type of programming and training that I received, wherein I was taught unconsciously to repeat programming cues, symbols, and triggers from Monarch. And I'm going to make a separate video at some point discussing my own internal system and what types of triggers and programming that I have experience with and knowing how to handle. But that's not going to be this video. What I am going to talk about is how I unconsciously repeated a lot of Monarch programming cues and imagery in the Kanye West video. And a lot of people have made the accusation that Kanye is a monarch. I have no idea if that's true or not. I know for a fact I was, as I demonstrated yesterday. INSCOM routed one of my defaulted Privacy Act files requests, one of many really sketchy ones, remember, to the military police, and they defaulted on it. There's also an active criminal investigation into who did this stuff to me as a child, which was classified, and then I was stonewalled from. And yeah, you get the idea. And there's also, the document that talks about me being used as target practice for Raytheon. Anyways, unusual circumstances. So when it comes to Marvin and Chardonnay, some of the programming motifs that I put in the subtext of that video were designed by me consciously to be subliminals. Like, so for example, there's a shot in there where there's a couple of them where I manipulate different eyes on the model spaces, and I layer it on the screen in the shape of a pyramid. And I know one version I put the eyes on both sides of the pyramid, and I'm pretty sure there's a version where it's either in the center, or it's like a necklace that Kanye is wearing, or I think Big Sean might have been wearing it, and I use it in the center as the eye in the center pyramid. I did that intentionally. Now that's a pyramid. The symbol of the pyramid with the eye in it is a symbol that's used in programming, and that's one of the it's not a trigger cue per se, but it's essentially like a reminder that you're always being watched from both within and without. And so I consciously put that in that video, and literally I remember when that came out, I was excited because people made comments and they said, oh yeah, like Kanye's in the Illuminati, bro. Kanye's in the Illuminati. And I'm thinking, like, dog, I put that shit in there. Yes. But knowing now what I know about my own history and Monarch programming, it takes on a whole different turn. Because then you get to some of the other effects in the video. The video features a lot of strobing cuts. That's a disassociation cue. And as I've stated before, a lot of my programming experiences involved exposure to stroboscopic lighting and Ganzfeld induction, so that I would have altered states of consciousness that could be then utilized, studied, manipulated, messed with. You get the idea. You can watch the other videos and I'll talk about it more later. That's not what this is about. And there were also other techniques used, as I've stated before, and other activities going on that were related to mind control and dark neuroscience and black programs with government brand don't want to be talking about. But that I digress. We're talking about Kanye West here and Monarch and my work with him. Anyways, that video has a lot of dissociation triggers that I put in there unconsciously, because the stroboscopic lights paired with the colors of the sets, the backdrops, those are programming subliminals that people who are not programmed in Monarch will still be affected by, because it's not going to lead to dissociation in someone from general population who sees that. They're just going to see it strobing. But subconsciously, the unconscious mind will understand what's being communicated. Like, for example, there's a lot of blue. Blue is oftentimes used as a color of submission in programming. And you can see in the video with the strobing, the blue strobes so much at so many different instances. You can see that essentially one of the unconscious meanings coming through the video is it's communicating you to be, to submit, and trying to initiate a dissociative cue to get you to do that. And if you had a Monarch system, what it would do is it would create what's called like I call it a spin. It's like a picture of X and then slice some lines on the top and then start spinning it three-dimensionally. That's one of the techniques they used to use in Monarch to pull up alters, and it's installed in the system through torture and trauma. And also some of the apparatus that I remember, the headsets, those are used to like modify neural pathways through the application of magnetic electric fields that can be used to cause like essentially like sever connections or amplify connections, etc., in the actual neural firing and pathway. That can be used for programming to reinforce and cut off different regions of the brain that can be then called up with like alter corresponding systems that can be either computerized or done manually. That said, so you have that. You also have the all-seeing eye in there. You have I know in the way that I laid out the actual effect, it's similar to this shape, which is a central. The X shape is used. It's like I said with the lines on the top in Monarch a lot, and it's like an hourglass in the Monarch one, because an hourglass is also used for some of the types of programming. And so the thing, like an hourglass was used in my programming, for example, and it was a really scary and weird kind of programming. And oftentimes too, by the way, what programming would occur is you'd be taken somewhere under false pretenses, either totally fully conscious and aware, and you might get drugged, or you would get drugged when you get to the place, or you'd be drugged beforehand and you'd be delirious, being transported to a place unsure why you're being taken there. Either way, you'd be told that you were being taken somewhere normal, and you would think, yeah, because you're a kid, you don't know any better, and you don't know your parents didn't sign off on this, and this isn't just part of what you're supposed to be doing. Anyways, I digress again. Back to the Kanye video. One of the other parts is that I created an effect that was with Cash, but it was like a shattering effect, which is a type of programming that's also used, and it was used on me. It's like, for example, when I discussed the Tokoloshe mask, some of the ritual abuse that occurred with that particular ritual prop was used to anchor my programming. So there were times where it was put on me, and then I was drugged, and I was also made to believe that I had become this horrific, hideous monster that has all this hair on it, and they'd hold a mirror up to you, and then they'd shatter the mirror. And that can be used as a cue for people who have program systems, and also as a subliminal for people who don't. And so, for example, in that video, in one of the early cuts, I created a version where the screen shatters, and Kanye really didn't like that, and because he had a problem with it being non-symmetrical, because I did a real shatter just like you would in a typical Monarch programming scenario. And so I actually had to modify that to be more symmetrical, and I know that it's not exactly like the way that I initially put it in there, and it's a lot more Monarch program heavy centric, the way that I did it initially with the full shatter. But I know that traces of it are still in the final video. And also, like, the video is really funny because, like I was saying, I made it from a really crappy, low quality, low res cut, and it was one of the first like super high res red epic videos ever shot. I actually know one of my friends is like good friends with the crew who shot the video, and they had explained how it was like basically shot in a super high resolution, and then I cut it in like the crappiest resolution ever with 720p, and I did the effects in there too in 720. Like I said, Kesha's boyfriend, her ex, my old friend, he color graded it and helped assistant edit it, and she like did the kind of creative direction, and I was the editor. And eventually we got it approved after a bunch of grueling days and pretty much all night shifts, and the video came out, and it is what it is. You could watch it. It's got some views. I think like 10 people have seen it. I think it was even on BET at one point, which is pretty dope. And yeah, anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. I wanted it to be a little bit more, not as intense, but I also think it's kind of interesting because I was talking about this with one of my friends earlier, and she was asking me if I thought Kanye was a monarch, and I honestly have no comment. I have no idea, but I know that I was. And so it's definitely odd that I worked on his videos, and I know for a fact that I both consciously and unconsciously put in trigger cues for Monarch program systems, and I was not even made aware of it until much later on, when I became aware of my actual true history and origin story and had the files to prove it, and the filings that I made and the misconduct that resulted, like, you know, them opening a criminal case on who did this to me as a child and then it getting classified, and me getting stolen. You know, that's pretty sketchy. You know, that's not an acceptable way to handle justice, and I don't consent or you know, appreciate what was done to me. And I didn't consent either when I was a kid, and so that's the thing, because it's not right. So yeah, to the question of whether Kanye is monarch or not, I have no clue, but I know I was, and I edited Marvin and Chardonnay. So if you want to see some monarch trigger cues, watch that video. Maybe watch it in slow motion or watch it fast, and you'll see the unconscious at work, the repetition of programming motifs. And then you see, you know, all 10 people who watched it were exposed to that. So, you know, maybe of those 10, one of them was a monarch too, and that triggered an alter pull-up that maybe taught them to be more submissive, or brought out more submissive sides. Because that's the other thing too, when you talk about monarch, like, there's a passive and an active side to it. It can be actively steered and controlled by human control systems or an operator, and it can be passively controlled. And the passive control systems are kind of similar to the later developed mass control systems, which came in like the more recent era. But yeah, anyways, thanks for tuning in. And if you want, watch Kanye West, Marvin and Chardonnay. I cut that video. Yeah, and also, yeah, bye.